Welcome to Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers. Welcome to Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers. I'm Spike.
I'm Claire.
And Zach is taking a day off. Today we're welcoming Rocket from Eat Vermont. How you doing, Rocket?
Doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Rocket. I'm so happy that you're here.
Always great to see you, Claire.
So I've heard a lot about you from Claire. I don't know, probably we've talked about you several times on, we do the After the Podcast podcast.
All good things.
Yeah, it's all been good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Rocket, why don't you tell us a little bit about Eat Vermont and what you do? You know, we normally interview spicy food people, and you're really just you're more of a food person, all foods included. So tell us a little bit about what you do and why is it great?
Yeah, sure. So I am known, well, Claire and I, we know each other here in the Vermont food scene. I'm more known within Vermont for telling stories around local food in Vermont. So obviously Claire and Butterfly and Fat Toad, those are going to all come up quite often. Claire's one of our shining successes in Vermont right now.
I try.
Yeah, and so I've built a following over the last decade of about 60,000 followers across social media platforms and tell stories about local food in Vermont. And then maybe on the side, 20% of the stories are just novelty stories, but focused on community here in Vermont. There's obviously a huge overlap between food and community. Over time, that's expanded from digital media into other media forms. So we're working on a hardcover book. Claire is going to be in that. She's in one of the 3 counties that we're covering. We've dabbled with the podcast ourselves, but I haven't really clicked into that yet. And working on a documentary that's pretty exciting that I'm not ready to quite announce yet, but we're working on a 45-minute length documentary. We'll rent out a theater and do it properly. And then we built a mobile app. So the mobile app is available on Apple and Android. It's a free mobile app that's called Eat Vermont, and it is a one-stop shop of all things Vermont food. And then layering on top of that, a membership org that we're starting to roll out. So just sort of different layers, but fundamentally you could think about it as I'm trying to use digital tools, so that's media and technology, in service of the physical food scene. So how do we strengthen our local food system? Basically what Claire is doing in terms of that connectivity with farms to the freezer, to the kettles, into the bottle, like that whole supply chain that she is really reinforcing here in our state and across the region. We're trying to figure out what is the digital mirror of that to create that equivalent strengthening structure to make sure that our food system is resilient, but also delicious and fun.
Nice. How did you get into Eat Vermont? Because I imagine you're not from Vermont originally, right?
No, I grew up in Southern California, so we have that Cali tie.
Yeah.
West
me too.
Like you're in
Riverside here.
Yeah. So we got the West Coast bloods. Well, I'll weave it into maybe a little backstory of my name, sort of a curiosity and just my path and process here. Make it like a quick autobiography. So I was born in Southern California. I moved to Vermont at 15 to go to art school because I was going to drop out of my Shishi private school in California to be a drummer. And my mom thought that was a terrible idea. She said, "This is a terrible idea because you're a terrible drummer." You know, and in retrospect, you know, especially on today, Mother's Day, what can I say? Mama was right, you know. He's an awful drummer. But the Putney School was actually my first introduction to a local food system. It's a farm school. So we had to work in the dairy barns and dig gutters, steaming gutters full of manure at 5:30 in the morning. Builds character and really helped strengthen my appreciation for local food. And then working in the gardens. And for me, it was digging up potatoes was that first profound, you know, holy smokes, I can't believe we get to bring this to the dining hall and eat this. So that was my educational route and my arrival in Vermont. I went to Middlebury College and studied economics and then had my quote unquote Kerouac years following that. And it was during those Kerouac years that I legally changed my name from my childhood name, which is Ryan Kim, to Rocket. And I just had the one name, Rocket. Like Cher, like Madonna, like Prince. You know, I just said, why not? This is America, isn't it? So during those years, right about the same time that I changed my name to Rocket, I got really interested in telling stories via digital media. So this is sort of where I found Eat Vermont. The Instagram handle was available. And I said, that's a great handle. And I thought it would be a great excuse to go out, flex some creative muscles, hang out in kitchens, and of course, eat free food. So I start getting into this. I had just changed my name. It was an era when it was really easy to build a following, but very difficult to find clients, partly because I just wasn't good enough, and partly because the way that our small businesses are structured, a lot of them can't afford the marketing that they need. And on the other side, the businesses that have quote unquote made it don't need marketing because they already have their own team. So it was sort of can't afford it or don't need it. And that I was wedged between that. Took a little time off and went to Southern California, back to LA to work on film sets just to understand production from the professional level. Came back to Vermont in 2019. And when the pandemic hit, I realized that I had no legitimate thing to put on my resume. So I said, I should probably go professionalize, and went to law school. So I went to Vermont Law School. Now my background is mostly in economics and law educationally, but then my work experience is mostly in media. And so I think therein is sort of this depiction or like a tension in my life of, am I an artist or am I a suit? And I think most days I'm an artist wearing a suit, but fundamentally an artist.
I have the same issue, but with hot sauce artists. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that honestly, it's been a way that I really connect to and relate to a lot of Vermont artisans, because a lot of craft foods is more art than it is business. But then actually trying to do it sustainably year over year requires a lot of business. So during law school, I really took it upon myself to revive Eat Vermont, because I had put it down for a few years, and picked it up with sort of this relatively dead account. It had 15,000, 16,000 followers from the previous incarnation of it, but then decided to really build it up properly. So from that, we've over doubled the account in size and just really brought a lot more energy into it. Part of that was the decision to let myself be a face on it. I didn't really want to. And it's actually a question I have for you guys in terms of the way you market with your own brands. How much should your face and voice be on it as small hot sauce producers versus how much should it be, some sort of caricature or something like that? That's like a tapatio or whatever. So that's sort of a dialogue that I had, put my face on it, and then decided to take the step further into the media, the assets that I mentioned earlier, the book, the documentary, and now the mobile app. Doing the mobile app, what happens is Apple Store, Google Store, and banking, they really need your names to match up. And if you just have one name, which is just Rocket in my case, it doesn't match up. It's Rocket, Rocket NA, not applicable, and then all sorts of other variants. And there is no one to call at Apple to say, oh, no, these are the same name. They just don't care. It's like no cute stories allowed.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I really like the name Rocket, and I don't want to move off of that. But what I'll do is I'll just add a first name as an honorific. So that's how I became Senator Rocket. So my legal name now is Senator Rocket, but that's sort of why I tell my friends, you're my friend, you can call me Rocket.
I love that.
That's great.
So I actually had the opposite thing happen to me. So I went to grad school in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Southern California in Riverside area. We decided, my family and I, that we were going to go to, it was in Amherst. And we went to Amherst, and right about a block away from us was a beautiful CSA. So we got to get, fresh vegetables and all this stuff and in my brain in Riverside, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. We've got all this, we got the dirt, we've got the, all these things. And we got there, and I hate farms. I like the idea of farms. I love everything. I mean, so I support farms. Absolutely. But me on the farm, it doesn't work. You had to put in a certain amount of time. I never put my time in. My wife loved it. She likes to plant. She likes to do all that stuff. I just don't like dirt.
See, I love dirt. I just am not good at making things grow in it. I have killed more plants than I have successfully grown. I grew up in California, and cactuses would die. Cactuses. And every once in a while, I'm like, I'm going to grow lettuce. I'm going to grow something really easy. And it grows like this tall. And I'm like, well, that was a good meal. Cool. Yeah.
All the really good stuff only grows to be small.
Exactly. Microgreens. Yeah.
I mean, I would not profess to be good at farming or to even enjoy the process of farming. I do love to be on farms. It's the same way. I'm a terrible cook, but I do love to be in kitchens.
See, now that's what I do.
Well, and I love the interconnectivity of the people who grow the food, the people who make the food, and the people who eat the food, because they're all absolutely dependent on each other. And I love how much people in each of those roles respects the skills of the people in the other roles. It's like, I suck at farming. I suck at growing things, but farmers, they grow the most amazing things. And it's so wonderful. But I wouldn't have I wouldn't be making any money. I wouldn't have a business if I didn't have people who love to eat food. And so like, you know, we need all of those parts. And I love when to so many people, they're like the same thing. And I love that there really are just totally unique roles.
Yes.
I also, Rocket, I really love that your like turning point pivotal moment was a potato, because I had a turning point pivotal moment that was a potato as well when I first moved to Vermont. It was the first summer that I was here in Vermont, and I was living with my dad's college friends here in Vermont and out in East Calais. So like out on a dirt road, and they had their own garden that used to be a dairy barn. So everything grew really well in there. And they had gone out of town, and I was house sitting, and my family came and visited, and I was like, oh, let me cook you dinner. And they told me that I could go dig potatoes. I'd never dug a potato in my life. I mean, I knew they were in the ground and you go down and it's going to be there, but that's about all I knew about a potato. And so I dug up enough potatoes for dinner, and I cooked them up. And I feel like potatoes, kind of like onions, you just think they're the thing from the store, and a potato is a potato is a potato, and onion's an onion, an onion. And when you have a fresh dug potato, like that was just dug, like especially when you get them at the farmer's market and they're new and they were just like dug up the day before because they haven't even finished growing, but they want to get them to market. They're the most amazing, incredible food. They're so good, and they're nothing like the potato that's even been stored for a week. Like when it's just like a day, maybe 2 days old. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
Well, I mean, I think you could. It's nice that we have that potato kinship. I have definitely found that with all things that I get at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
Which is sort of just, it's a profound difference, and it makes it actually really hard to go eat other things.
Well, and it's funny too with like it is, to me, it's the ingredients that make the dish. I mean, a wonderful chef can turn any weird ingredients into something amazing, like for sure. But you can do the simplest thing with the simplest amazing ingredients and get the most amazing meal. And I grew up eating fancy food. Like my dad would take me out to fancy restaurants when I was a kid on the regular. We would go out to like white tablecloth restaurants, usually like twice a week. It's just the life that I grew up in. And I was always very comfortable in that world and with that food. And as an adult, I found myself, I'm not uncomfortable, but I found myself more annoyed at that world. And the food that is more show than tell, the food that's more like, and I'm absolutely not going to name names because these were like amazing restaurants that I've gone to, but like, I'm like, this, you serve me something that has no utensils but still needs to be cut, and I can't, there's too many pieces of it, and like, or the piece is too big and this is awkward, but it looks beautiful, but I'm like, but I can't eat this. And it just, those like the ostentatiousness of food sometimes really irritates me. And I know obviously, Rocket, you were at like some of the most amazing Vermont restaurants on the regular, and so I don't mean to like put down that effect, but I feel like the simplicity of a perfect potato wins out every time for me.
And I think really, because when I started cooking, it was like that. Like everybody looked up to the high end, and then somewhere in there, it all changed. And all those cooks on the high end were like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they're opening sandwich shops and pizza places, and it's like they're making really good pizza, but it's not ostentatious, it's not over the top. It's like, this is just a good pizza, you know. And it's changed a lot. I'm glad to see it finally. You know, really good food can be relaxing.
Yeah.
And I would say that sometimes you go to the really, really high end and they get it, you know, like they realize that it needs to hit all the points and not just the visual, you know. Like I always got irritated when a dish has like a decoration that's not supposed to be eaten with it, or you know. Now this is not high end at all, but I worked at UC Berkeley's dining hall when I was a teenager, and they would always, on the giant hotel pan of eggs, scrambled eggs that I would be like serving up to the college kids, would always have an orange wedge on it for looks.
I would always eat that wedge.
Nobody wanted it. You had to serve it. You weren't allowed to send it back with the tray. And so like you would try to just like give it to somebody and they'd be like, can I not have that? And I'd be like, can you please take it? I know it's weird and warm and it's making your eggs taste like orange, but could you please take it? Because I can't send it back.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would eat it. I wouldn't mind. I love an orange.
I'm Claire George. I own Butterfly Bakery of Vermont. We make hot sauce, mustard, cookies, and granola, and 100% of our products are made with Vermont ingredients. The thing that I hear most often from people is that my hot sauce tastes like the peppers that are in it. We do really simple recipes that don't get too crazy and nitpicky, just to really accentuate the flavor of the peppers that are in there. The unique thing about our hot sauces is how much we feature the farm and the relationship with the farm and really bring the terroir of Vermont to our hot sauces. I am pretty sure I am the #1 purchaser of Vermont-grown chili peppers. I would love it if there would be a legitimate pepper market in Vermont where people would know Vermont for its peppers. We're all better for supporting each other. You know, and I think that part really shows itself with the collaborations that I do with the other businesses and the other farms, that I love working together and coming up with new ideas and presenting each other with new challenges. And I think overall that's the attitude here. And I absolutely love it because that's my attitude. I try to live my life with love. The ingredients that I use, I would say that my values are reflected in that, that I use ingredients that, again, feel good, feel loving, feel supportive. The relationship with the farmer was how it all began. If I changed the reason for it being, if I went out and bought some commodity peppers, you know, it might not be as good.
You can find Butterfly Bakery of Vermont hot sauce, mustard, granola, and cookies at butterflybakeryvt.com.
Warm orange is weird but okay, but an orange flavored eggs, I think, is that they're sitting on top of. That's
Well,
a little much.
that's when the hot sauce comes into action, you know?
Yeah. Then that's when you need the hot sauce. We should talk about hot sauce. Since it is a hot sauce show. Rocket, what is your experience with, or your life experience, your work experience with hot sauce, spicy foods, you know, that side of the food scene?
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm Korean blooded, so my first exposures to hot foods were gochujang. And probably gochujang was like and kimchi. I mean, those are like the two primary spices that come from the household exposure. But then I grew up in Southern California and a lot of Mexican, well, Hispanic culture, but it's predominantly Mexican. And so a lot of, you know, vinegar-based hot sauces from that region. In college, I got exposed to chile de árbol, which I thought was great. And then over time, exposed to others. But let me say that I guess it started with the Korean and Mexican influences, and then over time and then I think at some point there was a great Indian influence as I sort of discovered that in my early 20s. Although I could not name a single one of their spices. It's always like a potpourri of spices. And then I guess truthfully, Claire, I mean, a lot of my understanding of a nuanced, high quality at home hot sauce has come over more recently from your hot sauces, which has been really great. I mean, well, thank you, I should say, because I mean, I definitely, there are other great kimchi makers. There's some here in Vermont that are great kimchi makers. There's not
Sobre Mesa.
Sobre Mesa. Yeah, absolutely. And then Finale's fermentations down in Brattleboro, I really like. Yep. And then some of the pickle makers do some spicy variants, which are pretty cool. As far as like a pure hot sauce goes, I mean, I've had so many of your hot sauces. I said, oh, well, for tonight's hot sauce show, we're supposed to make hot sauce. Literally 9 of the 10, actually more than that, like 17 of the 18 hot sauces I have are your hot sauces. Now, it's cool because I know you work with different farms, so I have some of those variants. Yeah. And I know, you use different pepper blends, so I definitely some of that as well. But it's really been this, like, one of the great selfish joys of building Eat Vermont for myself has been that there is so much care in the craft. What you were saying earlier, Claire, about the quality of ingredients that people put in. Yeah. That has been my real touch point to the craft of hot sauce or the craft of other foods. Yeah. And so that's been great. And then I should have said this when laying out the background of Eat Vermont, but the real reason I got into Eat Vermont is not the food itself. It's because I love people. And so for me, I just love that. I am endlessly fascinated that I ended up in this body in this life and that you ended up in your bodies in your life.
Yeah.
And somehow through infinite time and infinite space, we're intersecting. And that to me is just like
Yeah.
a miracle. And so I love the idea that food can help create those miracles of bringing people together from any walks of life together to break bread. And so that's sort of been my touch point. Bringing this back to the hot sauce, the fact that you've worked with farmers that I know or farms that I've visited has made it more intriguing and interesting to me to go see the peppers growing on the plant and then to go have the hot sauce. And that to me has been like the full completion of the experience.
Nice.
I want to do something. So we've kind of, I think, so I, in case anybody's wondering what happened to the $100 hot sauce thing we were doing last year, we have decided pretty much that it's not possible to make one that is worth $100. But I want to ask you that question because I think it would be really good.
Okay.
So what would you want to see? And please don't say truffle. What would you want to see in a hot sauce that they're charging $100?
Well, what is the volume of the hot sauce?
5 to 8 ounces.
Okay. So a traditionally $7 to $12 bottle of hot sauce for $100. Let me use the pun and stew on this for a second.
I think by the way, Claire, I think I figured out how to do that and make it worth it. But it's not necessarily about the hot sauce, but about the whole process. Yeah,
the narrative.
And there's a lot more to it. Yeah.
I think
it would be like fly to a country, learn how to make the sauce they make, make it with them in mass, and that's the $100 hot sauce.
Well,
and then part it back.
It's kind of like, so Bar Hill Gin, Caledonia Spirits, which is in our area, they do these, I believe they're $20 tickets to do a tour of the distillery. And then they say you can dip a bottle in wax if you'd like. So you can just go there and dip a bottle in the wax, which is cool. But then if you want to bring it home, you have to buy the bottle, right? So it's very interesting. Like, it's so clever because people get the experience. But then once you've dipped the bottle, you got to bring it home. And so they sort of like upsell the bottle on top of the experience, which is the tour. So you could do a $100 bottle of hot sauce in the sense that someone comes and does the course and makes the thing themselves.
Yeah.
Right? There is some aspect of that.
I like that.
I like that. That's like that's the whole
the
Mark
answer.
Twain, paint the fence
whitewash
thing.
Fence.
Yeah.
Well, so Roger, the main guy who leads the tours at Bar Hill, is on my board. And he has said, he's talked about that experience of wax dipping, that it just, it's not everybody who buys the bottle, but the majority of people buy the bottle because they feel like they had a hand in this and they played a part in it.
I don't drink and I'd buy the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and especially in your case, you don't drink, so you could just enjoy the visual of the wax that you dipped.
Absolutely.
A piece of art. Yeah, I think limited quantity is important. There's definitely, if I've touched it and I've dipped it, now it's one of a kind, right? Or if I can stamp it with my initials or something like that.
Yeah, you know what? I think everybody does well, not everybody, but a lot of people do the dipping. We'd have to dip the whole bottle.
I've seen that. I've seen that in like wine bottles where it's basically the entire thing, and then they just hang a tag on the outside with the label.
That would annoy me to no end.
Yes, that is
Stick
correct.
the label on top of the wax.
I wonder, you could do it a hot sauce bottle in some sort of special carrier, like a knit carrier. There's Homeboy Kitchens or something like this out of the West Coast. Are you familiar with them? Where
is Homeboy? Is that Kuti? No, that was a different one. Never mind. No.
Well, I might be getting the name wrong, but I believe it's called Homeboy Industries or Homeboy Kitchens. They take people who are former felons and then give them an opportunity to work in kitchen and develop skills. So there's something like that could go in that angle. There's the coffee that comes out of the monkey
Civet
poop.
Cat.
I've had that. It's so good.
Yeah.
So,
I hear the elephant one is the real one because it takes a lot longer to get through the elephant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, there are many hot sauces with coffee in them, are there not? You can sort of like polish that, roast that, something, The Run Amok Maple does a great one with the fake gold, the edible gold. So you could add
Yes.
some element in that. I think we could go for a $400 bottle of hot sauce at the end.
I like this.
One of the things that I really liked in all of the like people that we talked with this about was like the idea of hand blown bottles.
Yes.
It's like, so each bottle is unique, but that would be way more than $100. Like a single custom hand blown bottle is already just on its own at least $300 without anything in it, and you'd still have to be able to get
like
a hermetic
that thing
seal.
where you're going to get the we get the top guy and we go, okay, you're going to get the notoriety for doing it, and I can't do that to any artist. I can't, you know.
Oh well, yeah. Jeez.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing about hand blown bottles, the glass is extremely hot, but you also have to cook your hot sauce, don't you? So what if we did like a live demo of cooking the hot sauce in the bottle?
Wow.
Like, are you familiar with stone bowl?
But wouldn't it just burn the sauce? I mean, glass is like 1,000 degrees.
You got to get it down to temp, right?
Huh.
I don't know that. Yeah,
I don't think I've seen anybody ever put something into blown. Like I've seen lots of blown glass demonstrations. I don't ever think I've seen something in it.
Right.
I
So
mean,
imagine molten glass temperature, and then whatever temperature you cook the hot sauce at, you just let it cool to just above that temperature, and then inject the hot
like
sauce.
250. As soon as it starts hitting, it's going to drop to.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, but at 250, as soon as anything enters there, it's going to drop dramatically. So it would be
that
right
has
about.
to mess with the temper of the glass, right? Wouldn't that like promote breaking?
That's
I don't know.
But I like that. What I like about this and what I like about your answers is that like, because you're a storyteller, it's about the narrative of the sauce rather than the ingredients, rather than the packaging. Right? It's about the story of the sauce. And I honestly think that the only way you can do $100 hot sauce is with a good story. And even
absolutely.
Spike, what you were saying about traveling to a far off place and gathering the ingredients and bringing it back. And that's all story. That's all story there too.
That's exactly it.
Well, imagine if I had a ceramic mug, or you went to Graceland, you visited Graceland, and for some reason or other, they said, this mug that Elvis used, we are going to be selling it today. I mean, that would sell for easily over $100, right? Just by the fact that it graced his lips at one point. And so I think therein you could just say, like, even if this hot sauce came out of, Queen Elizabeth's collection, it becomes $100. You could, there's sort of the way that, the rabbinical way of blessing food as kosher, where the rabbi goes and blesses everything as kosher. I mean, you could have the Dalai Lama stand over hot sauce and bless the batch of hot sauce. I don't know. I think we could do it.
I think that would, the thing that would happen with that is, like, I think during the Middle Ages, a lot of churches would say they had a piece of the cross, the actual cross, and somebody, some historian went and tried to piece all that together, and there ended up being like 14 crosses. I think that's what basically would happen.
So there was a study done, and I don't remember what university did it, but it was back in the time of Craigslist, and they did a study where they sold things on Craigslist, and like really mundane thing, a pair of old shoes, some old luggage, some just everyday stuff that people would sell on Craigslist. Nothing too wacky, but just everyday stuff. And they would sell one that was just like, here's a black piece of luggage, it's got 2 wheels and blah, blah, blah. And then they would sell another one that would say, this was the luggage that I brought on my honeymoon, that, I went to Curacao with my beloved who has now passed away, and and just this whole narrative that has nothing to do with the quality of the piece, that is just imbuing it with a story. And hands down, people bought more and paid more for the item that had a story.
Well, and one of the marketing issues that we've run into is, what's our story? We need something short and punchy, but also it pulls people in, and we still are looking for that story. Zach has Homeless to Hot Ones. That is brilliant. That is so good. We don't really have that yet. We're finding our way this year. I think we're starting to get somewhere with that. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but I will maybe after. The story is so important. Claire, you've got a great story. As you've talked about, but it's hard to edit that down. Yeah.
Well, and that's, I mean, I've been honing that story. I've been actively working on that story for the last 2 years. I mean, like part of it is that I've been in business for 20 years. Like what what is the piece that I talk about? Like, there are so many different stories that I can tell about being in business, which is the one that's going to excite people. And even when I was working on my investment deck last year, I wrote my first like pitch deck, and my board listened to my presentation and read it and said, nope, I would never invest in that company. And I was like, cool, these are my biggest cheerleaders. Let me rewrite this. And they told me I had to include more of myself. So like what you were saying, Rocket, about, you know, putting yourself more into it. And so part of it, I went back and I was like, okay, you know, what's my history from my childhood that relates to this? And I realized that I had this narrative of like, I started my own lemonade stand when I was 9. I went to business school when I was 16. I, you know, started Butterfly Bakery a year out of college. Like I have this narrative that makes me sound like the hustler I am not. But
I don't know about that.
It makes me sound like the kid. It makes me sound like the kid who would like sell candy to like on the train to, you know, to make money, to get another buck, to get another, you know. I did it for the love of business, I guess, the love of like creating.
Just like no?
It's creating, because you're not Warren Buffett. You're an artist.
I don't need to be a millionaire or billionaire. Like I just want to. I love creating something that becomes something in somebody else's life.
Yeah, well,
that's what I want to do.
I grew up in a fairly wealthy family in Southern California, new money, and going to Middlebury College, and I don't know, growing up in that environment, seeing poverty, especially overseas, but in our own country, made me feel very bad about the wealth that I came from, and bad about wealth in general. The thing that changed my mind about it was a lesson that I heard from a rabbi who told, it was a book, but the concept was money earned fairly or ethically, which is a really important foundation.
Yes.
So money earned ethically is actually a reflection. It is not the only way to measure it, but it is a way to measure the value that you've brought to others. And the way you can see that is that as a consumer, you would never pay for something that you did not feel was worth more than what you're paying. So if I pay you $20 for something, that's because I perceive what I'm buying as worth more to me than the $20. So therefore, whoever I've paid that $20 is that there's a reflection therein that they brought me at least $20 of value, but actually more, right? Mm-hmm. And so this idea that money earned ethically being a reflection of the value that you've brought to other people, and actually less than the value that you've brought to other people, really helped me understand personally and spiritually a peace and comfort with building wealth. To say, I think, Claire, I know you, and so I know that you care deeply about supporting the farmers you work with, supporting your staff that rely on you, and then making sure that your customers get a top tier product. So I know all of those things about you, without a doubt. And I think in that, if you say, what is the value you're hoping to bring at every level of that value chain, some of that may not be reflected in the dollar balance on your balance sheet at the end of the year, but some of it might be. And I don't know. So I guess I would just push back a little bit to say, like, I don't think that at this point in my life, I don't think there's anything wrong with making the money and becoming fabulously wealthy. If that becomes a reflection.
Well, and I would also say that having money, earning money, gives you the power to do more good in the world than you could do if you had less. It makes it easier to do good in the world with it. Yeah. And not everybody does that. Not everybody chooses to do that with their money. But I think it's also like the study of people where they say money can't buy happiness, but it does to a certain point. Like if you make less money than, you know, an X amount that you need for your basic survival, then it very much affects your happiness level. And if you make more than that, then you feel more comfortable. And then there's a certain point where it does not affect your happiness anymore. And it's not going to affect that. And I think that's, to me, money has always been a tool. It's been a tool, and if I can do good things with the money that I make, then it's a tool well used. If I just, you know, put it in a box somewhere and go diving in it like Scrooge McDuck, then it's probably not well used.
Sure. But I guess going back to your story, I know I kind of went on this long tangent, but on your story, I do see in a positive context, I see you as a hustler, in that, like, meaning that you hustle hard and that you
that was me.
And you really commit yourself to that process. So I personally say this with admiration and nothing but compliment, that I do see you as that kid that is excited about selling the candy bar, right? And just, this is my own third party perspective, of course. And if you see yourself differently, I fully accept that. But I personally think that is totally part of the Claire that I know, to say, oh, she's really trying hard to get to that next stage and to bring that product to market. I really respect that about you.
I actually do think of hustler in a positive sense generally, and the way that I was using it there is probably not as accurate to how I would use it.
Nobody in the world thinks of you as that kind of hustler.
Yeah.
Nobody. Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers, is brought to you by Irish Spike's unique hot sauces and Vandal pepper sauces. I'm Spike, the owner and executive saucier. Our sauces are handmade in the Pacific Northwest using the best possible ingredient. We believe that hot sauce equates to a balance of sensational heat coupled with a robust and complex flavor profile. Live your hottest life with Irish Spikes. Irish Spike's unique hot sauces and Vandal pepper sauces are available at saucecult.com.
But anyway, I mean, it's so Rocket, bringing this into like marketing and storytelling, what do you see people who are trying to tell their story or trying to market their company, small food businesses, what kind of mistakes do you see people make?
Ooh, mistakes.
That's a great question. I like that.
You don't have to name names.
No. Well, there are a few pretty obvious mistakes.
Vermont's a small place, Spike. No, he doesn't have to name names.
I live in Idaho.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think there are a few that like jump to mind as obvious mistakes. One is trying to like do something that they read online in terms of like, you're supposed to post every day, you're supposed to post every week, you're supposed to post for Burger Day and Girlfriend Day and all the days of the year. And I think that in a lot of ways it's an easy prompt to think like, oh, I can post something in relation to that, but it's not honest to your story. And I think if you run a burger company and it's Burger Day, then yeah, it makes sense. But if otherwise, it's kind of like, it can feel very forced, right? Mm-hmm. So using prompts as a crutch rather than integrating that fully into one story. The other one that's super obvious to me is when people either shoot not well enough or shoot too well.
Yeah.
And on the too well side, it's being overproduced and it just feels very corporate-y. And I guess it depends on the audience you're looking for, because I think that if you're a specialty food producer, maybe your core audience is actually buyers and distributors. So that might be the case, in which case having really glossy, very well-produced stuff makes sense, in which case it's not a problem. But insofar as trying to reach everyday customers, if you go DTC, then I think that actually being a little less produced is important, but being so poorly produced that it's not fun to look at, or it's like, I can only see half your face, or, the light is not I just can't see you. I can't see the product. And I think there's sort of like this side where it's not good enough and this side where it's too good. And somewhere in the middle, I think, is a pretty happy medium, at least in the consumer space. The last one that maybe jumps to mind is, I guess there's two things. On the positive side, I would just say as authentic as the story can be to the brand makes the most sense. And so anything that kind of deviates from that can be really challenging, right? And so in one of those cases, I think that people will force collaborations and then say, oh, you must follow our accounts. Well, the thing is, it's a good way to pick up followers. I think but it's an artificial way to pick up followers, because people will follow your account if they want to. Like, everyone knows how to follow an account. It's not that they need the giveaway to learn how to follow your account, right? So the challenge with doing a giveaway like that, for example, as an example of deviating from the authentic voice, is that you're artificially driving followers to your account based off of some sort of perceived transaction, which is a giveaway. And what ends up happening is that you end up having a bunch of followers that don't care about your brand. And you'll see that reflected in the number of followers you have and then the percentage engagement you have. And so that's a really bad ratio to have on socials anyway. So it's damaging to you anyway. But the other thing is, you just sort of create this lackluster energy around your brand versus, hey, we're doing this really cool thing. Here's the giveaway. This is our joy, in honor of my mother, in honor of, our, longest term employee retiring or whatever. And we just want to spread our gratitude out. That's fine. And that's great. And I think when you go the extra mile of saying but you also must conditionally blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Consumers can feel that as a transactional relationship between themselves and the brand. Right. So I think there's something in all of that. And I mean, Claire, just speaking to your brand, I know your product is great product. So to me, if I were in your position, I would have no problem just like putting out word about the product, knowing that if and when people try it, that's the sell right there.
Right.
So it's simple. And I think a lot of brands that do all have that same competency go a little too far overcompensating in the socials. And consumers have a really like nuanced feel for that because we're exposed to so much.
Do you have a recommendation on how to build genuine followers?
I like this.
Yeah. I think it's going to have to be on two things, right? It's the people or the product. If you have killer product like Raising Cane's or Chick-fil-A or these national brands that have diehard loyal followings, no one knows really who are the faces of In-N-Out Burger or these brands, right? So I think that's on one side where they're really competing on price and product, right? But I do think that on the scale of a smaller brand, it is that, but it's also the person. And I think really being able to tell the story matters a lot. And I will say that I think that a lot of like storytellers or business owners feel like, oh, I've already explained it. It's on my website, or I explained it in a post 3 months ago. Right? The challenge is that actually a lot of consumers haven't seen it. They haven't clicked on your website. They might have missed the post, or they read the post, and literally in the last 3 months, they've seen 50,000 posts sent.
Yeah.
You know, like how many posts do people see in a day? Multiply that. It's literally every day, people on their phones. So it's like, how much do they really remember all those details about your life? And I think that a lot of producers make the mistake of thinking that once they've said it once, that it's been received. And maybe just the inner circle of people who know you have received it. But even then, like the same way we repeat stories to our loved ones and it sort of reinforces the relationship, I think that there's nothing wrong with periodically reintroducing yourself to your audience. And that just creating a really proximate bond, emotional bond. Because like you said, it's not just the product itself. It's got to be, why do I care about this brand specifically? And, you know, to reinforce that. And I think that's a really simple way of doing that. Now, it is tricky. I will say the algorithms are really challenging these days. And it really feels like Meta has decided there will be winners and there will be losers. And in order to jump from the JV league to the varsity league, you have to sort of make these seismic leaps. And that's really tough, I think, to really cultivate that. But I do think that it's the same with building trust in a relationship. It just takes many, many times to build trust, and it takes very few times to break the trust. Mm-hmm. So I think really working on cultivating an authentic voice about yourself and your brand and saying, I'm willing to do this vulnerably, repeatedly, over and over and over, vulnerably to whatever extent you feel. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to build on the nucleus of your audience and then expand that concentrically. There's a really good business. There's a business in Southern Vermont that I would recommend. Butter Mountain Bakery. Yeah. And Hannah Small is her name. She does a nice job. She does these she's quirky and she does these little videos and it's just her thing. But just over time, she regularly will get a few thousand views on her videos. And once in a while, they'll pop and go viral. But the thing is, by the time that any of those go viral, if people click over to her account, they can see she's been doing this for a while. And that style is actually her. It's not just one gimmicky thing that she did that went viral. It's like, oh, you can scroll down and like, that's her. Now, whether you want to follow her that or not, that's kind of up to you. But at least you've now been brought to her page that's been brought to your attention. So I think that it is this like careful, gentle, long-term cultivation. And then when things click, people can come through and say, oh, this is really legit. I'll stick around. The benefit of being small, though, and not having an audience is that you actually get that time to iterate privately or to your like true closest and then slowly iterate your way towards that. It takes time. It's just, it's a painstaking process.
It's almost like actively editing your story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I heard a recommendation. What one person told me that you need to get bored of your story. You will get bored of your story long before your audience will get bored of your story. Sure. And then somebody else said that every good piece of content should be used at least 3 times.
That I agree. So this weekend, we do something called the Irish Spikes Hot Sauce Games. Claire, you've heard me talk about this a bunch of times. It's an offshoot. I just kind of did a version of, there's a British show called Taskmaster, and we do it like that. I know. So we just do it hot sauce version. It's like get the hot habanero on the table from the furthest distance, stuff like that. We live in a college town, so we get college kids that want to do it. And I'm known. I wear a red suit. I'm kind of known for wearing my red suit, and so
Cool.
we film this. It's really janky filming, but people love it. And I was talking to somebody at the farmer's market saying we're going to do it. It's coming up. And they said, I didn't see the posts last time. I said, I posted a bunch of times. I said, I'm so sorry you didn't see it. And it reminded me that as many times as you think you've posted something, you haven't posted it enough. People just don't see most of what you do.
Totally. And one of the things that is a painful but maybe comforting truth is so for me with Eat Vermont right now, the scale is such that if I publish any videos that receive fewer than 5,000 views, that's sort of my arbitrary metric of, wow, this video bombed. It's completely arbitrary, but that's sort of where I sit. And there is this thing where it's like, if I get 3,000 views, I'm like, wow, that content really bombed. That would be sort of my mentality on scale. The truth is, though, that if the content is really bad and it just doesn't get plays, A, I have to take responsibility for it. But B, if it's bad, no one saw it, right? So it's kind of you kind of like get this feeling. The other thing, though, you're totally right, though, Spike, which is that even our big hits, let's say 20,000 views and so forth, if you look at the percentage of people that actually watched it all the way through, it's not that many. And if you look at like what percentage were followers versus non-followers, again, you sort of lose some. So then if you say, as a proportion of my audience, which number of people saw this and how many people actually took the time to watch all the way through. And sometimes, this happens to all of us. You're watching a piece of content and then you get distracted. Someone texts you, calls you, whatever, and you never revisit it by the time it's gone. So posting it again might be like, oh, great, I was going to look for that, and here it is. So I think that there is totally the opportunity to post. A content creator friend of mine, she's got, mid 150-ish thousand followers. She said she's taking classes with Meta. They're hosting them for sort of top tier influencers, which is interesting. What she said is, if the content doesn't work, just tweak it and then post it again. And just tweak it and post it again.
Oh, I love that.
You don't. And that's actually a really interesting way of learning. Is it actually just the storyline that sucks, or did I just not put a good hook in it? And I think having the hook matters a lot, right? To lay out the stage.
When I went to school for writing at UMass Amherst, and when I would have people read the stories for me, I would have them all read them, and I would just ask them. You don't have to I would ignore most of the opinion stuff. All I would really ask them to do is please put an X anywhere where you look away, where if somebody walks in the room and you're engrossed in a story, you're not going to look up. But if you look up, then you need to put an X, and then I would match the X's up and start working on those areas. Cool. And it's basically what you're saying is the same thing. I've never applied that to videos, which I definitely will be doing from now on.
The other thing I will do, I do it less so now, but it really helped me a lot when I started out doing videos, was watch my videos and refer to myself in the third person. So if I was watching it with someone else, I would say, okay, here he sounds good, or here he looks like an idiot, or like, he looks terrible. And I would just literally treat the person on screen as a third person as best as I could to really divorce the ego from it. Because it's so hard it's really painful, honestly, emotionally, to put a piece of content out where you're like, I don't know. Like sometimes I'll put a thing out and then like, there's a little bit of dust on my chin. And it's like, only I would really care about it, but I really care about it. But then it's also like, the story is good. The owner was there, the food is there, like everything else is checked off. And if it was a third party person, I would turn to that person and I'd say, I'm really sorry, but this is what we have and this is what we're publishing. Right. And so it's in the case that you let your ego get involved where you say, no, I can't do that. We've got to go refilm it. Well, now you're going to go and now you're going to be stumbling over your words because it's the second take and the food's getting cold, and the whole thing just tumbles out. And instead of just putting the anxiety aside, if it was someone you loved that you're saying like, I see this person on screen and he looks this way, he sounds that way, that's not going to be a good reception for this guy, for this person. And like really divorcing that versus like, oh, I love when he smiles. Yeah, that does make me good, feel happier. I don't know. He was a little rude there. And even that sort of thing, it's like, you'll still publish it and say like, next time for your notes, let's improve it this way. And so then you go film again. You'll say, well, that time I won't grab the person in so hard or whatever. Like, I won't eat the food while they're talking or whatever it is. But you can give yourself notes in the third person. And I think that to me has been really helpful.
This has been a Spike Mind Media production.